To see so many of you turned out. I hope you'll stay for the whole 2 hours, but we'll see. First item up on the agenda this evening is Andrew Winter, the Executive Director of Twin Pines Housing. Andrew?
Good evening. Thank you very much for making time on your schedule again for me. This is to follow up on a conversation that we started 2 weeks ago on the July 10th regarding the conditional award that the town had received of $600,000 from InvestNH's municipal grant program. I'm happy to kind of go through the request again for the benefit of anybody who might not have been there, if you would like.
That would probably be helpful.
Okay.
Yep.
So the town, at our encouragement, had applied for a state-sponsored program to encourage the production of workforce housing. This grant of $600,000 or $10,000 per unit, a 60-unit project that we had proposed, is for communities, as I mentioned, that are permitting workforce housing. And we had been asked, as I indicated previously, by New Hampshire Housing to investigate the possibility of the town committing all, or at least a sizable portion of the funding that the town will receive for the project from InvestNH, so that we could reduce the amount of funding that New Hampshire Housing has committed to the project on a dollar-for-dollar basis. And as I indicated previously, without this funding, the project may not proceed, in which case the town would not receive any of the $600,000, and a funding commitment from the town would make it much more likely that the project would be able to proceed. Other communities, including Manchester, Newport, Goffstown, and Peterborough, have all committed some or all of the municipal grant program funds from Invest New Hampshire to projects, and some have put their money into projects, some have put it into the projects, all of their money, some have kept some of the money. And from our perspective, this is a great opportunity to send a positive message about the commitment of the town of New London to the overall mission of creating workforce housing. Generally, the funds that have been committed to projects come in one of two ways. First, they've been granted to the sponsor, in this case Twin Pines, and then loaned into the project by the sponsor. Alternatively, municipalities have directly loaned the funds to the project, and we'd be pleased with either approach, whatever the town would like in terms of contributing funds to the project. What are some of the economic benefits? As I talked about last time, there will be a one-time infusion of through a tax payment of approximately $150,000 once the project is removed from current use, and the project would be expected to pay nearly $100,000 a year in property taxes in its first full year of operations. There's some real benefit, as well as bringing a whole, a whole and much needed group of folks to the town. 60 units of housing that's what we're trying to create here. And again, your support has been much appreciated throughout this process as we've kind of worked to get this project moving forward. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Andrew. I think given the number of people here who might be interested in this, we might ask them to speak first. Is that all right with both of you? Did you want to say something? Yeah, Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks. Can you explain to me the language, and by the way, I'm 100% in favor of this, okay, so I don't want this to come off as being, just the language here that says that the money is loaned into the project by the sponsor, that to me, using the word loan says that the money is going to be paid back, but it doesn't sound to me, can you just explain that language? Sure,
it's a little bit, so we're going to be using federal tax credits provided by the state of New Hampshire. These are federal tax credits that are allocated to eligible projects. And so typically the structure that we like to see and investors like to see in those kinds of projects is loaning the funds in to the project. It comes in essentially as, in this case, general partner equity into the project. It's not going to be paid back. There's not an expectation, but that's a structure that we can use that works within the tax credit program. If you can.
Yep. Yeah.
Follow me there.
Yep, I can. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good question, B. I was going to come back to that. That's good. Do you have any technical questions, Janet, before we do? So let me open the floor to anybody who wants to ask Andrew questions or speak in favor of this proposal or opposed to this proposal. There were several of you last time. I hope we might get different people this time. Russ, please come up and introduce and state your name for the recording.
Russ Moore. I just wondered how the situation with the wells is going to impact the construction schedule, and what is the projected date at this juncture of completion?
Thank you for that question, Russ. So we are, as I think I mentioned last time, we had happened the day I was coming in to hit a very good well, and which was very welcome. This has been a long process, not just for us, but for Jimmy and his siblings, who currently own the land, and we're excited. We were excited about that. So the next step is testing of the water. So that will be going on over the next couple of weeks, and we expect to have results in early August. I will say, we are expecting that we will be moving forward in the coming months, purchasing the land from the Crescenti family, assuming that the water quality and volume is sufficient for the project. Actual construction would likely wouldn't start until next spring at this point. We have to go through a process with New Hampshire Housing to finalize the financing. The town's piece is an important piece of that, and then that would be in September. We actually have some design work to do. Architects are going to get going. Banwell Architects that worked on the Lebanon Playhouse. The New London Playhouse. I got to remember what town I'm in, what day of the week it is. They're going to be working with us designing the buildings in the coming months, and then we'll go out to bid, a final bid. We've actually are in the process of procuring a construction manager currently, gotten some proposals in, but all of it's kind of resting on the water, and ideally we'll get into construction in the end of the first quarter of next year. About a 12-month construction.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to ask questions or make comments one way or the other? John?
Andrew, I think this is
Would you
great.
introduce yourself, please?
John Ellis. I had a question. If the selectmen did not approve this, what effect would it have?
Do you want me to answer?
No, yeah.
So if we did not receive it, I would have to go out and find $600,000 someplace else.
Okay. And you had said that you'll start construction 2025, and you would be open then in approximately 2026?
That's right. So for a project of this size, typically we expect about a 12-month construction schedule, so we would be expecting to come online in the spring of 2026.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I do see someone now. John?
Thank you, John Fink. I just want to thank the Crescenti family for their forbearance and their enthusiasm for this important use of their land that they have husbanded and nurtured for so many decades. And it's a great contribution to our town. And thank you to the Crescenti family.
Thank you, John. Okay, then, Bibi, you started, so I'll let you indicate you might be in support of this, so I'll let you go ahead and say what you want to say, and beyond that?
No, I think I thank you to all the people that have worked on this tirelessly. It's such an important piece to come to the town, and that's it. I think it's very exciting.
Okay, thank you. Janet?
I too thank the Crescentis and all of the people that have helped bring this forward. It definitely is something that is needed in the town, and I think it would be remiss of us not to, in some way, help. And this is an opportunity for us to do that by giving the money to the project. So I'm definitely in favor of the entire amount going to Twin Pines Housing.
Okay, it will not surprise you to know that I also support this. I think one of the things you said 2 weeks ago, Andrew, that was helpful in thinking about this was the fact that you had gone along with the town's desire to not just have the one big block of one building, and that you'd gone with the 4 buildings, and that it added the cost to it. And I think that's an example of where you as the developer have worked with the town to try to fit the project into the town. And so I'm very appreciative of the 4 building plan that you now have in one way or another. So thank you for that. Kim, of this vote, do we need to determine which way we want the $600,000 to be used as a direct to the project or give it to Twin Pines?
Yes, you can make a motion to put the money for that project. Some towns have required certain things, like I think Hanover maybe discussed solar on the roof maybe, or, but I think most towns are just handing it over to the project.
Okay, good. So I'll entertain a motion to contribute the $600,000 from the Invest New Hampshire funds to Twin Pines for this project.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda,
Jeez.
let's see if you can do this well. Charlene Baxter is going to discuss historical markers with us. If you insist on leaving, this would be a good time to do so. But what Charlene has to say is also
Thank you.
pretty interesting.
Thank you. I'm Charlene Baxter. I thank you for putting this on the agenda. I am part of a small group of, I'll say, concerned citizens. Listed on your agenda, also add Pierre Bedard to that list. So there are 5 people that have been sort of working on this. And we, Doug and I actually had an informal conversation with Kim Hallquist back in April, and I know that it was a conversation that you had somewhat briefly at an April meeting. So we're back to talk with you a little more in depth about this. New London celebrated its bicentennial in 1979, anticipated its bicentennial by commissioning and erecting 16 historical markers, 1 per year between 1963 and 1978. These actually were done at an event New London held at that time called Old Home Days. These markers celebrated important people, places, and events in the town's history. New London will celebrate its semi-quincentennial. I had to look that up. In 2029. Marking 250 years. I do know from informal conversations with you that some of you have gone out and looked at some of these markers, or perhaps all of them. It does make a very interesting field trip to go look for all 16 of them. In the 50-plus years since the markers were erected, they have experienced significant wear and tear, resulting in markers today that are weather-worn, faded, and in poor condition. Fair to poor condition. Some of them are worse than others. This small group of people is asking you as a board to address the poor condition of the markers. Ideally, the existing markers would be refurbished, placed on new posts, or perhaps in some cases the post can be reused. That needs to be evaluated. And in some cases even moved to more appropriate locations by the time New London celebrates its next big birthday in 5 years. We do know the town owns these markers. The current condition of the markers reflects the values the town places on its history. It does seem like the right time to start to address the condition of the markers if they are to be refurbished by the time the next big birthday rolls around. We have been in touch with the company that manufactured the markers, and we do know that they have a refurbishment program, so we do have some details about that. I won't go into that now, but we do have quite a bit of detail about what that would involve. I also want to thank Jim Perkins, the town archivist. Thank you for doing a lot of research and putting a presentation together for us using the town archives and his own survey. Very helpful, very informative, and he raised some questions that were quite legitimate and merited attention. We think that there's a role for the highway department to possibly get involved. I don't think it would take a lot of time, but it seems like they could be involved in helping take down the markers, get them ready to ship, and help us put them back up when they return. We are a small group of people that have a lot of interest in this topic and appreciate that you've put this on your agenda, and our questions tonight are for you in terms of what kind of a role you might like to have, what kind of leadership can you provide to this project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Janet, do you want to start?
First, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. I had no idea they looked so bad. But after I drove around town with Kim, we both agreed that it definitely needs to be done. Certainly in favor of doing this, and I think now is an opportune time to get the ball rolling. Sure. My recommendation would be to put a warrant article for the town to vote on in 2025, and maybe in the amount of, say, $40,000, so there's a little cushion in case there's an overage in any way. But I think, I'm fairly certain that the Highway Department or Public Works would be delighted to help with this project. So thank you, and I thank Jim for, I know he is a great resource, and I know he spends a lot of time on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bibi?
How long does the refurbishment process take place for each sign?
I'm not certain. I do know that they would like these 16 markers to be shipped to them together. They would take them all together. Their preference is that they not store them, they ship them back here as they complete the refurbishment process. So we've talked actually more in generalities than specifics with them because we simply didn't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But they also know that we're thinking about a 250th anniversary, and that's not a concern of theirs. They do this.
That was just my thought along the lines of, I didn't think of warrant article for the whole thing up front. I was thinking of how could we break this up over the next 5 years. And yeah, but you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, so you probably know better why we should do it all in one lump sum. But that was just what I was thinking of. How could we stretch out how we pay for it? Because I think it needs to be done too, and I think the goal of 2029 for the 250th it's a perfect project for that. But so
I was aware from the minutes of your April meeting that there might have been a discussion among you and also perhaps other people when they start to think about this, that there may in fact be an interest in new markers to denote certain events. It's not something we've talked about. I'm just pointing out to you that that certainly is, I suppose, a possibility.
I guess I would add one thing. I wouldn't want to do, I appreciate the fact that they did one a year over 16 years. I think that's remarkable. But I think from a cost analysis, it's probably much better to do it all at once, send them all down there, have them all done, and then ship back here. So that would be my approach.
Well, they started planning this project quite early, and I don't know how the funding was done at that time. They might have paid for one a year, but they definitely rolled them out on a singular basis at Old Home Days, which we no longer celebrate.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree with both of you. I think this is a worthwhile project, and I think your suggestion, Janet, of putting a warrant article on the next town meeting warrant with the ability to expend the funds through 2029, have the non-lapsing fund, would make sense, and probably a little bit of cushion. It would seem to me to be worthwhile if between now and, Kim will take care of the language for the warrant article, between now and town meeting, when you will need to make the presentation that you and Jim Perkins, who's sitting there quietly thinking, more work for me.
He's so very good at what he does.
And Sam Clark, the new DPW head, and other interested parties get together and talk about this issue of additional signs, because that obviously would impact the cost, and the question is, what are the standards that would need to be met, and so on and so forth. So I think your working group with Jim's help and would be the right way to go. And Kim, I suspect you'd like to know by the end of the calendar year what the article might look like, and then you'll do the legal work?
It'll have to be, because that article will have to be considered by the Selectmen and the Budget Committee. You know, they will put their recommendation on it as well, so the sooner the better.
But realistically, we don't have our meetings when we do that until after the first of the year. So,
Right.
And having had this discussion, I don't sense any problem on the part of our part, unless you were to come back and say, well, we think there should be 55 new signs at an additional cost of so much and so forth. But
That request will not be generated from this group.
But I think it would probably also be helpful as you try to put this together for town meeting to be a little bit more specific about what signs might be moved and so on, because individual property owners might
question.
have some input into that. So that would be my only thought. Anybody in the audience want to ask Charlene questions or comment on this proposal? Who's hiding over there? Ashley.
Hi, Ashley Seawold, resident of New London. I just wanted to throw my support behind it. Those signs are wonderful. I've actually noticed we've got one on Knights Hill. We've seen an increase in walkers this summer from, I think, due to the work being done on Main Street. But I have seen more people stop at that marker in front of Marilyn Kidder's house and reading it, and also down on Bunker Road reading, I think there's one or two down there. I've seen folks stopping and reading those. So I do think they serve not only a purpose for us as residents, but also for visitors as well. So just want to provide my support as well.
Thank you, Ashley. Jim, I don't know if you've started to think about the celebration in 2029 yet, but I suspect you might have something to do with that. And it seems to me that in anticipating questions that might come up from town meeting and so on, is what's the town going to do in 2029? We might begin to talk about that also a little bit between now and town meeting, if you are willing to come back at some point, just to have a sort of free-flow discussion with us, or maybe you have a plan you would like to present tonight.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I have given this some thought, and I think the first step in sort of kicking this off is typically to see what's been done in the past. And in fact, the series of markers we're talking about tonight are not our only markers. We still have markers out there from 1929 at the 150th anniversary of the town. So these things do persist. I'm not necessarily thinking a physical marker makes sense again in this century, but I would look to a different kind of project, I think, that was more collaborative, involved more community support. These markers were drafted and erected, as far as I can tell from the records, by a committee of 3 or 4 people, and Dr. Squires was a force, in town, and could get things done, and this was really his baby, as he was the state chair of the New Hampshire Old Home Day Association. So that's why we were celebrating here in particular, and using those markers basically as an annual event and a big publicity thing. But for the future, yeah, I think what I intend to do is I'll offer a presentation that looks at different aspects of how we've celebrated in the past and maybe gets some people thinking about it. After the 2000 Town History was published, the Town Archives, the Town History and Archives Committee was kind of repurposed to just focusing on archives. So technically, historical townwide celebrations are not in our purview any longer. It's not part of our mission statement. But that obviously doesn't mean we don't have a role to play. And the first step would be to informally try to get people thinking about how we've celebrated in the past and how we might do things in the future.
So, Jim, do I interpret what you said, that you are still in favor of refurbishing these signs? You're just not thinking that the next generation of markers should necessarily be the same type of material?
That's correct, yeah.
You're not opposed to what Charlene is
Oh, not at
suggesting?
all. No. I mean, some of the signs, frankly, and I've shared this with them, I like better than others, but their preservation in general, I think, is worthwhile, and particularly, as Ashley mentioned, those that are on established walking routes, I think, are particularly useful to the town. So I have no concerns about the preservation.
So it seems to me that maybe later on, between now and the end of the season here, not the summer season, but this year, that we should have a formal discussion about what some of the thinking is for the future and begin to figure out how we're going to manage that, and whether, I suspect we probably don't, the 3 of us want to personally do that, but I bet with Jim's help we can probably get something together. Does that seem to make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So any other comments or questions that people have on this topic? Paul? Oh, Charlene, yeah.
I just have 2 more things to add. One is that we would propose maybe the location of the markers could be placed on on one of the maps that people refer to, maybe the trails map or someplace to let people know how to find these markers. And secondly, on the Town Archives website, there is a list of the markers, including their locations, and I offer that to the audience in case we've piqued their interest.
Great, fantastic. So it seems to me we've all said that we're supportive of the project, and what we'll do is we'll end up having our formal vote on this when the actual material is presented in the form of the warrant article for the warrant. But I think the working group can assume that we're supportive of it, at least as long as it stays in the price range it's in. And if they want to expand the project in some way, then we'll talk about that some more. But this will not be the last discussion between now and town meeting. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Is that all right with all of you? Okay, good. Thank you. Where's Jamie? Is Jamie here? Right here. Oh, there you are, hiding back there. Okay. Next item on the agenda is Jamie Hess, the Chair of the Energy Committee, to talk about a grant opportunity. Sorry, I didn't see you come in, Jamie.
No worries. There. I guess the green light means the mic's on. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm jealous of Charlene and her friends because they have 5 years to plan for refurbishing the historical markers. It seems like any time an opportunity comes up for the Energy Committee, it's a much shorter window of 2 months or maybe even 2 weeks. And we have to act much more quickly. So I'm here to talk about not one but 2 grant opportunities. One that we definitely want to take advantage of if at all possible, and the other I'm not sure, but I'd like to pose it as a question to you. So the first grant opportunity that's a slam dunk is the municipal solar grant program that was recently announced by the New Hampshire Department of Energy, and it is using federal funds to offer grants of up to $120,000 to municipalities who would like to install a solar array and own it, as opposed to our 2 existing solar arrays, which are owned by outside investors. This would give us a chance to own the array from day one and get basically free electricity for the life of the system, which could be 25, 50, or 100 years. So I have I've drafted a letter of support that I sent to Kim early this afternoon. Have any or all of you seen it? Oh, great. And I brought a copy. As I said to Kim, feel free to revise it if need be. So what we're going to be applying for, and this is something I just printed out but I can share via email, is a 50 kilowatt solar array at the stump dump. And we got a quote from Granite State Solar for $133,000, which I think is very reasonable, considering the solar array cost numbers that I've been looking at over the past 7 years. It's actually less money per watt than what Lisa and I paid for our system that we installed in 2017. So I think that's fantastic. And if we can get $93,000 paid for with the state grant and the other $40,000 paid for with the Inflation Reduction Act direct pay program from the IRS, then we can actually get the array installed at zero cost, except for a few little things like extending the power from the water precinct next door into the stump dump property, which, you know, it could be $10,000 or $20,000 to do that, but hopefully less. So why don't I open it up for questions, and then we can talk briefly about the second grant opportunity.
Bibi, your turn to go first.
Are matching funds required for this grant, do you know?
My understanding is that no matching funds are required. There's just a cap of $120,000 in the grant award, and we can design any size system we want, up to 60 kilowatts. This design is for 50 kilowatts, so that's under the cap, and we can obtain the other funding any way we choose.
Anything else? Anything else? Janet?
Jamie, thank you for all the research you do with regard to this. It's wonderful. We save a lot of money because of you. One thing, though, with regard to ground-mounted solar arrays, they're not terribly attractive. So do you have any idea what this would look like on that property? Because it is wide open, and there are people living in the area, so I'm just wondering what that would be.
Right. Well, the design that was put forward by Granite State Solar is for 92 panels in 2 rows of 46 panels each, and they would be shoved way against the northern edge of the property. So on the extreme left as you go in the entrance. And it's an area where there are currently some brush piles, but there's no vegetation there at all. So as I mentioned in the draft letter of support, we're not going to eliminate any vegetation. We're not going to cut any trees. We're not even going to trim any trees. And it will be probably visible, but not directly in your field of view as you go in and out, because it'll be way off to the left.
Anything else, Janet? No. So for the audience, you may not have followed closely our discussions over the last year about the so-called stump dump property on Old Dump Road, but we did have some engineering work done several months ago that indicated that were we to do something on that land that was on the surface, that we should not have any problems with its prior use. Were we to decide that we wanted to do something that would require breaking the surface, then we would need to do some additional engineering work and so on. And you may recall, if you were here for any of those discussions, that we decided not to pursue doing that at this point, but there has been enough work done to give us some confidence that solar panels are a reasonable use for that property, given its history. Is that in agreement with what you've also heard, Jamie?
Yes. Yes, I've heard that as well. But interestingly enough, I was just told, and I can't recall who told me, that solar panels are now being installed around the state directly on top of capped landfills. And I'm not exactly sure how they're doing that, but there's a very strong push to repurpose brownfields for purposes such as solar arrays, because those brownfields are not really good for anything else. You probably wouldn't want to build houses on them, and not if you could possibly avoid it. So I think we'll have strong support for using this little sliver of land for solar.
And obviously, there's going to be discussions with the Department of Public Works about how they might have to use their land differently for what they're using it for now, or use a different section of it. So I assume all of that will happen once the grant is given to the town. You will work with the Department of Public Works on that land.
Yes, absolutely. Assuming we get the grant, which is certainly not a shoo-in, but we have as good a chance as anyone else.
So I thought I saw Bob Harrington. Where's there he is. Bob, do you have any comments about this? I know that life is short these days, but I don't see Sam here, so.
Jamie and I have had the discussion. The biggest thing is not to affect what we currently have up there for stockpiles and whatnot. So we were pretty vocal about that, and he's aware of it. So as long as we can fit that in an area where it doesn't affect the compost pile, I believe that's the section you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was unable to make that meeting that you had because I ended up with a very short notice of it, and I had prior engagements. But
Well, that makes two of us. I actually wasn't there either.
But my recommendation would definitely include Sam in this. He's aware of what's up there, so work with him. And then I don't think it's out of the question that there is some room up there.
Okay.
But just want to make sure operations are still able to proceed the way they are. So.
As I understand it, you're on a very short leash to get this grant in. So those discussions will be, I think, part of what we would expect if we approve this tonight.
Right. So, yeah, the grant materials are due in by noon on August 1st, which is, a week from tomorrow, I believe. So, yeah, we're actually meeting over at the Sid Crook Room starting any minute, and we may be burning the midnight oil tonight to work on all the grant materials, because there's a lengthy application plus 15 supporting documents that we have to submit.
Okay. Any comments from the audience about this? So I would entertain a motion that allows us to sign the letter that we have in front of us, drafted in front of us, indicating our support for this grant application.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
And thank you to the Energy Committee, and have a nice meeting.
All right, well, I'm not
Oh, you have
quite
another
done
one. You
yet.
have another one for me.
But first of all, thank you, Bill, Janet, and Bibi. And I just want to bring this to your attention as well. And this was an even shorter lead time. I just found out earlier this week that the state of New Hampshire is soliciting applications for EV charging stations. And this would be, I believe, 80% federal funding. And we had, at one time in the recent past, I guess January 2023, we turned in an application to put 2 charging ports in front of the town office building just down the street. And that grant was shelved, basically, in favor of making people wait to apply for this new round of federal funding. Now, the catch on the new round is that they're no longer entertaining applications for 2 charging ports. Instead, you have to install at least 4, which means 4 parking spaces dedicated to electric vehicle charging. As a result, I'm not going to ask you to rush into this, but again, the deadline is August 1st, next Thursday, to put in a pre-application indicating our interest in being selected for a grant. And in this case, the state is not evaluating requests and handing out the federal money. Instead, they're going to bundle all these requests and submit them to the federal government in a single application requesting funding for all these charging stations all over the state. So we send in the pre-application, the state decides if they're going to include us in the bundled application, and then if we are included in that bundled application, we get to find out somewhat later if the feds selected the state for the grant award. So it's a very convoluted process, but I think the question that we need to answer, and I'd like you all to think about this, and I don't have my heart set on a yes or no answer, but is there a location on town land where we'd like to offer electric vehicle charging and where we could spare 4 parking spaces? The answer may well be no, but it's something to think about. And in the meantime, Colby Sawyer College has just finalized a plan to install a 4 parking space EV charging station adjacent to their new health sciences building. I just found out about that this morning. And there has been interest in the past in installing electric vehicle charging at both the shopping center and the hospital, which of course are out of our purview, but up to the powers that be in those 2 locations. So that's all I wanted to say about EV charging. If you'd like us to move forward with a pre-application, we're happy to get started on it, keeping in mind that there's only 8 days to get it in.
Bibi?
Do the 4 parking spaces have to be right next to each other?
I believe so, for practicality and to minimize the installation cost. So you don't have to run unnecessary lengths of conduit from 2 spaces over here to 2 spaces over there. But I wouldn't rule that out as a potential solution.
Okay.
It would just be a little bit more expensive because of the extra underground conduit.
Janet?
Jamie, normally, how long does it take to charge a car? Do you have an average time?
Well, you have to keep in mind the fact that nobody arrives with a totally dead battery, or else they'd be stranded on the roadside. And it's rare to non-existent that somebody needs to charge all the way to 100% in order to reach their destination. So if you're talking about charging from 20%, which is, think about that, if you have a gas car, you're under a quarter of a tank, and you're really looking for the nearest gas station before you run out. So 20% up to 80%. It could take maybe 6 hours at a so-called level 2 charger, which is the cost-effective model of charger that we would be looking at. And it's the kind of situation where somebody is working an 8-hour day and they park their car, plug it in, and they've got more than enough charge by the time they get out of work at the end of the day. So it can also be used in an emergency situation where somebody just needs to get to Concord or Lebanon, and they might only need to charge for an hour to an hour and a half. Now there are much faster charging stations that we could install, but they're an order of magnitude more expensive, and I think that would totally rule it out, especially since we're not talking about 100% funding, but only 80% forcing us to come up with the other 20.
Well, where I'm going with this is, we do not have a lot of extra parking in this town.
Right, and I would be the first to admit that.
And I just, even though I think it's a wonderful idea, I'm just not sure where we could put it, and to take 4 spaces for a certain amount of time will have a negative impact on businesses, the library, different areas of town, and I'm not sure that's really what we need to do at this point.
Right, so it might be a wiser move to let Colby Sawyer move forward with their project and possibly encourage the hospital and the shopping center to move forward with charging at those locations.
Yeah.
And those are probably the 3 areas in town where we have the most parking and where they could most easily spare 4 spaces.
Jamie, does this program require it to be a municipal location? Is there any reason why, if we were to put our hand up, we couldn't then partner with the hospital, say, and use their site?
I think I'll have to review the worksheet, but I think you have to specify the location. So if we could get say the hospital on board in the next week, then we could submit an application basically on behalf of the hospital. But I don't think we'd want to do it without their permission.
No. But also, I don't think in the next week, even given Janet's comments, that we'd be able to specify, excuse me, where in the town we would do this. If you're saying you have to specify that in the application.
I believe we do have to specify the location. And so I've alerted Colby Sawyer to this opportunity, and of course they've already chosen their location. And I've never had a conversation with the shopping center. They may have already chosen a location. I doubt the hospital has chosen a location. That is, which parking spaces they would dedicate to this.
I suspect in any of those cases, they're going to have to come to the planning board for a site plan review. But that is, I'm sort of with Janet at this point. Your solar project is significant in time commitment at this point. This is coming very quickly, and I think there's some sort of more important philosophical discussions to be had about the town getting into the private utility business and so on. We don't own gas stations. I'm not sure if in the future the town should be owning the alternative form of fuel.
Right, so perhaps a better role for the town is to encourage other institutions and stakeholders to step forward and do it themselves rather than doing it ourselves.
That would be my view. And Janet, I think at the next planning board meeting, you might want to raise the question about if things like this come along, whether the planning board feels they will have to have some say in reducing the parking in these other places, because all parking came as part of a condition of the site plan review for the institutions we're talking about. For example, the shopping center would have to, I'm sure, ask for something to reduce parking. So I guess what I sense is, BB, do you have, let me see what other people feel. Other comments from the audience on this one? Okay, quiet group. My sense is that we probably would not support putting this application in at this point.
Okay, well, I'm totally fine with that, and as you pointed out, we have plenty of work to do on the municipal solar grant, so we'll focus on that to the exclusion of everything else. And I do want to mention that this is apparently not the last chance to visit this issue. This is a 5-year federal program, and we're just in year 2. So should we reconsider, or should anyone else in town want to get in on it, I believe there'll be opportunities in the next 3 years to get in on the federal funding.
My recollection is when I was on the planning board a year ago that this issue of electric EV charging stations was one that was considered as part of zoning changes. And so I think, my recollection isn't very high, and I didn't know we were going to talk about it tonight, but I do think, Janet, it's probably, there's some policy issues involved here as well as ordinance issues and so on. So we'll get the planning board working on it while you work on the solar thing, okay?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Good separation of duties. Take care.
All right, well, thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, BB.
Do you want us to bring you in water or sandwiches or anything?
Oh, down at Sid Crook?
we could sort of act as your errand boys tonight and bring you your food, water.
All right, well, I think we're going to have at least 5 people there, so we'll take turns running across the street or wherever we need to go.
Very good. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank your fellow committee members for all that you all are doing. It's fantastic.
All right, yeah, I couldn't do it without them. They're incredibly hard workers, so I better get over there and join them because they've already started.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, we've reached that point in the evening where we have public comments on any topic that is not on the agenda. Do we have any of those? Ashley.
Hi, Ashley Seawold, resident of New London. I just very quickly wanted to share that I have softly launched, but will be hard launching this weekend, a new website and weekly newsletter that is really going to serve as a hub for all things happening, hopefully in the town. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there are other initiatives very much like it. I know that the Chamber has not only a website, but also a monthly newsletter. And I believe that it's a private citizen that does the Kearsarge calendar that is also similar, that has a calendar and I believe it's monthly newsletter. I think where my vision here is, and what sets this one apart from the others, is that it's not just events, but it's also critical news and updates that we want our citizens to know. And that's not just from the town, but it's also from our local businesses, community organizations, nonprofits. So the first edition will go out Sunday night, and it's really meant to go out every week so that folks have a really clear view of what's happening in the coming weeks, or in the coming week that they should know about. Some of the things that you'll see in this first one is things like, hey, The rec department has their final swim lessons. There's still space available. Fenton's Landing in Sunapee just opened a new beer garden, things of that nature. So really spanning across sort of all areas, not just the town. I do want to make note that this is not meant to take away from any other marketing efforts that are happening. It's really meant to be a complement to things that are already out there. What I would love to stay away from is from this being the sole place where something lives. Everything right now is linked out to its original posting location. So whether a website, actually it's all other websites. I've had about 550 people already sign up, about 300 in the first 24 hours, which I was not expecting. And I've had some really great response on just folks feeling like there's a lot of information out there, but somehow folks still aren't aware of things happening. And I sort of got to the point when someone said, oh, the town doesn't do swim lessons. And I was like, oh my God, they've literally been posting it and it's in the municipal matters. I said, I think I can probably serve a purpose here. And so I've had a chance to meet with Kim, and she had a quick look at it, same with BB. It's very clear that this is not, something run by the town, but I do link out to the town website. The more we can build that muscle for folks going to the town website, knowing that there's a whole host of information there that's really critical, the better. And same with linking out to the different businesses and organizations and things of that nature. I'll say that over the past 2 weeks, I've found out that there's quite a bit of really cool stuff happening. Really cool stuff happening. You'll find like the COA calendar for everything that's happening at COA for the month of August. And things of that nature. So I'm excited about it. It is, the website to sign up is what'shappeningnlnh.com. And again, the first one will go out on Sunday. It's crisp, it is clean. It's also pretty personal. So it's not just going to be an email where it's like a bunch of, events listed. There's some commentary there that I hope folks will enjoy, and also an opportunity to get folks more engaged. And I don't want to give too much of a detail, but too much out. But my hope is that folks will start to be able to see folks in different, in Hannaford and say, hey, I saw X, Y, and Z in the newsletter. That's really cool. Talk to me about that. So that's that. Just wanted to share with you guys. I'm excited about it. I hope it will be a good response. Who knows? It might be dead by December, but want to give it the old college try here and see if it will help serve a void that I think is there right now. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Anybody else have a public comment they want to make? No? Okay, moving on then to old business. Discuss the building asset management plan. Is Bob, Phil, which one of you? Bob. Phil, he's waiting for you to come forward.
I don't need Phil, probably.
You don't need Phil, okay.
He's there for moral support.
Okay.
We spent about 2 years, back in 2022, we started looking at several asset management plans. We actually got in contact with 5 different companies. One said they could do an asset management and dropped out, so that they didn't have what we were looking for. But to cut it short, we basically looked at what we thought would be the most simplest operating plan for the management of the facilities, and we started out with, on our list here, we have the least expensive at the top, going down to the most expensive, and we decided that the iWork was actually the simplest to use. It was just a basic program, which is what we're looking for. It gives us the potential to expand further down the road as far as for equipment. We are able to, I just talked to a gentleman on that, and we are able to actually include the police department and fire department in that. At this point, we're not looking at the equipment end of it. We're more focused on the facilities and buildings. I think that would be a lot for Sam to take on, so we'll just stick with that. But my recommendation would be to go with iWorks. The other advantage is we just found out the town of Sunapee is going with it, and we're hearing good things about that, but it also gives us the opportunity to speak with them and learn more about what is involved in expanding it to these other things. From what I'm understanding, I believe you can also put in like street signs and culverts and things like that. So I've heard a lot of good things about it, but that would be my recommendation. And as you can see, the cost of that is $5,500, but that's not including to gather all the information. That's another whole section. This is just for the software and maintaining it for the year.
Could you articulate how much again? What did you say?
It's $5,500.
$5,500?
The implementation of the program is $2,500, and then there's an annual fee of $3,000 per year. And then if you look down through, Cartograph was $5,000 for the program and $3,700 a year. And this is just for buildings. He did say that there would be an implementation fee of a little bit more to add in other things, but it didn't sound like it affected much of anything else when we get to that point. IMGIS was $10,000, and I can't remember which one. There was a couple of them that wanted to do 3D imaging and all this stuff, and it's like, no, we don't need that. I just need something that'll be easy for these guys to see what needs to be done and put in what we've done, just to log it in a much better way with work orders and such. The last one was Brightly, which was 21.1, excuse me. And then their price, I thought, was kind of strange. They had it in 2024, it would be $7,700 for the annual. 2025, it jumps up to $7,900, and $8,100 in 2026. So that one was kind of the first one we threw out. But from what I'm seeing, this program would be the simplest for us to adjust to and make it run efficiently. So that's my recommendation.
So in case the people in the audience are listening to the video are not totally familiar with the background, this is a project you started to say has been looked at for more than 2 years, originally developed by the Building and Facilities Committee. The thought behind it came from them, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've actually started it even before the Buildings and Facilities Committee. We were on a search, I want to say probably a good 4 or 5 months before they came on board, trying to find something that would work. And then Phil was great. I mean, him and I met with all these companies. We saw what they had to offer, and we're pretty much both in agreement that this iWorks is the direction to go. But definitely spent some time on it.
And this was funded in the current budget that we approved in March, is that correct?
That is correct. There was a warrant article for that.
And the responsibility for this is going to end up with your successor, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why I'm here tonight. I wanted to do this before I leave, because Sam didn't do the research I did. I felt it was appropriate that I was here for this. So. My one last hurrah.
You've been having several last hurrahs.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last couple days have been a little bit.
Last night was late, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Kim?
I have a question. Bob, so the information is entered, the data is entered, and who does that? Is it someone, an employee of the town of New London, or is somebody working with iWorks?
That's the phase 2. We've actually been looking. We haven't got over that hurdle yet. We have a company right now we're looking at that is familiar with iWork. And if this doesn't pan out, we're probably going to reach out to Sunapee and get some idea on who they use, because that's a lot of information that they're putting in. Basically, I think the buildings need to be assessed by somebody that's professional to get an accurate. Both Phil and I are in agreement of that. And then it could be put in by us, but I'm not sure how that works yet with the companies that would be out there.
So if there's an issue, would a representative from iWorks come to New London and work with you to solve it, work with the town? So my guess, where are they? Where is iWorks?
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're out of, but they indeed can send a representative. They can actually do all this too, but as far as putting it into the computer, it's actually pretty much more like a spreadsheet. It's pretty simple. So I don't see a huge deal with it being done. I know Sam, I hate to throw him under the bus, but he's pretty good, a lot better than I am on a computer. I can hold my own, but he's the younger generation, so I see a lot of potential there with him, so. And Nancy obviously is aware of all this too. She's worked with us on the sidelines a little bit too.
Sometimes when you're working with a company that's in Portsmouth, for example, that's not as handy as if they're in Concord. So that's the only reason I asked that question.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of plans out there. This is what we come up with, and like I said, it was a good 2-year project just to find somebody, and I've been hearing good things out of iWork. I can find out more information as far as where they're located. I don't know if Phil remembers that. Yeah. And I can look through this folder. I might be able to find something. I'll get back to you.
Bibi?
Yep, I just want to understand the implementation, $2,500, that's probably just loading in the software and doing training, I would imagine?
Yep.
Annual license is $3,000, so that's going to be an annual cost, the $3,000?
Correct.
So that will be for technical support, so if there is an issue, they would either show up or probably call to your question.
And we did reach out to several different towns. We asked them specifically for towns in New Hampshire that have used this program, and we did reach out to those towns and found out that they were happy with what they got. And I was really pleased to hear Sunapee as well jumping in on it. So.
The warrant article originally was in what amount? Why do I have the name 50,000 in my head?
Yeah, I think it was 50.
Okay, so we'll still have some money left over.
Correct.
Which will go towards, like you said, the person that's going to input the data on the buildings into this. No, Phil? You're shaking your head. It'll not pay for the whole thing, but could be paid towards. No?
Phil, just because of the video, would you say who you are, please?
Yeah, Phil Sherman. The bulk of that funding is to do the survey.
Okay.
This is just this is a basic database program that will just
Right.
say air handler, Whipple Hall, monthly services due,
Yep.
spit out a work ticket.
Yep,
This was done on this date, history list, that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Yep.
So this is the raw backbone.
yep,
What the survey is intended to provide are two things. One is the long range, when's the roof going to wear out
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But the other is the time frames for servicing. And what we kind of agreed with them on was to say, if an air handler has, say, a monthly and a yearly service, just tell us there's a monthly and a yearly service. Through some volunteer work, we will open the manuals and start to flush out what that really means. We don't need engineers to do that. And then that would get entered, presumably by Nancy, into this thing just as a check, 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 and then push go.
okay, I got it, okay.
So the majority of that money really, I suspect, is going to
Going
go
to go towards
toward
that
the
work.
survey rather than the program.
Like I said, this is
Yep.
a pretty basic program.
Yeah,
The other ones
yeah.
were way too complicated
Yeah.
from what I
No, it's
saw.
all you need is
Yeah.
keeping track. Okay,
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Kim, did you have any comment about this?
No, I think we need a motion then to go with the iWorks.
Let me see if there's anybody else in the audience that wants to ask questions first. No? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to engage iWorks to run the building asset management plan.
Go for it.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much, Bob. You want a few more projects before you leave, or you're all set? I'm good. You're all good? You're sure? My reference to last night was that Bob and Sam were up quite late working on the pump station for one of the pump stations for the sewer. Would you like to just tell us how that went?
Actually, I want to commend the water department. They actually helped us out, as well as, actually, as more Rob Thorpe, because some of his guys ended up tied up here. But Sunapee was fantastic. This was quite a project. It took many hours. Sam and Chris were there, along with Mike McKelman, from midnight.
Would you just explain, since we are recording this, what the project problem was that you had to deal with?
What's that?
Would you just explain what the problem was, since people...
Yeah, there was a,
don't understand what you're
basically,
talking
there was a
about?
contained spill in the basement of the pump station. Ironically, there's a sump pump in the basement that failed that we knew about, and we had an electrician come in to diagnose it, which they came today, but I actually told them probably not a good time to come because now we got to clean up. They did what they could do. We got to get some information to them. But the spill, along with the sump pump, created flooding in the basement. We managed to pump it into the pump system. Our bypass pump, by the way, was worked beautiful. Unfortunately, it threw an engine code partway through, but we made it through what we needed to, and that was cheap insurance. I am so glad we had that to avoid major catastrophe. We had issues with valves that we had to close up on Job's Creek Road. We did finally find one that was exercising good, so we got that closed down in order to cut pipes that actually fed from the 12-inch force main to go to Sunapee, so we had to disconnect it, put a new shutoff in, and then we abandoned the pipes that were leaking because we don't really need them anymore anyway. Made it a direct shot into the main, so hopefully it's going to run even more efficiently. And we don't have to worry about future leaks in that system in the basement, which is a huge thing. So this involved putting probably about 6 feet of pipe in, I guess, different lengths with a couple 45s and a shutoff valve. It sounds like it's simple plumbing, but this is all ductile iron pipe that takes a backhoe to lower down in the valves and stuff like that. They're all heavy. These guys worked with very little sleep, and I mean, I can't say enough about the work they did. Taking care of that, getting it back up and running. We had Mike McKelman at our main plant manning that. We shut it down. So the flows in Sunapee or down to George's Mills were pretty much stopped. And then we had Stearns with 2 pumper trucks. Not going to be cheap. Sam's first big PO, by the way. We had to have them there to transport sewage to Sunapee, obviously because we couldn't pump it. So this took a lot of moving parts to get this all coordinated, and I want to say that, you know, Sam and Chris were right on it, had this stuff all in place. They had the pump over there. They did a fantastic job. We got a beautiful team of guys right there now. It's great Chris is still going to be there when Sam moves on. So kudos to them.
Chris is the new wastewater department.
Chris Roberts is the one that works with Sam over there now, and he's very knowledgeable in the whole operations over there.
Well, but thank you too. I mean, you led the way here. You got Sunapee involved, and you helped Sam along in his first big project and so on. So
they
people
let
don't
me
always understand what happens behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
it's nice that you happen to be here tonight. We're actually recording for those people that listen to find out what happens literally down underground, right?
Yep, and we had to change a meeting, cancel a meeting. I got Kim involved in that. I was supposed to meet with the budget committee a second time. I had to cancel. That's part of my life. They did let me run the backhoe for a while. I was shocked.
Oh, my goodness, okay. Well, once again, I don't know how the town's ever going to thank you enough for all that you've done, but this is a nice going-away present.
It's actually been my pleasure. It's been a great ride.
Good.
So,
Well,
thank
thank you. Okay, moving right along, the next item on the agenda is discuss potential sites if the police station is relocated. Let me bring everybody up to date on one thing and then just remind people of a second thing. The thing I want to bring you up to date on is I've had some discussions with Tony DeLuzia at Collier's, and when he and the architects are here on the 2nd of August, for other things we'll come to in a minute, they are going to, on our behalf, make a review of the structure on the property at the so-called Broom Building at, what's the number down there? Phil, what's the number? One, I'll get it out in a minute, 156, I believe. So they're going to look just at the building, because we've had a number of questions, if we wanted to consider that property, whether or not the building itself was usable. So we've asked Colliers to do that, and they're going to do that as part of their work for us. The other just factual piece of information is that they are going to be here, LBA, with Colliers on the 2nd, and according to their schedule, they are going to start the site visits for the sites other than sites other than the Bucher building, which they then need in order to be able to start doing their test fitting as of the 7th of August. So were we not tonight to give them sites to visit, we would be setting ourselves back at least until the next time that they came to town. So I think it's imperative on us to keep up our end of the bargain and tell them what we would like them to do in terms of sites other than the Bucher building. They have a separate time schedule for their Bucher building evaluation, but that's well known. But we still have not told them what site or sites we want them to look at when they're here on the 2nd of August. That doesn't mean that we can't continue to have discussions and so on, but I think we would be not holding up our end of the bargain if we don't tell them what we're looking for them to do on the 2nd of August. That said, we talked about this at our last couple of meetings. Janet, where are you in terms of this question of what sites we might like to have LBA consider in addition to the Bucher site?
Well, I guess I don't want to limit it to just 2 sites, like the Broom Building and Bucher. I think if they're going to be looking at sites, I think they should look at, and I don't know the address of the Bewley property across from the post office.
0 Newport Road.
0 Newport Road, I think, should be looked at. And I also think, and I don't know the address of across from Peter Christian's. I think that site should be looked at as well.
That one is 198 Main Street.
Okay.
I'm about to get my piece of paper out
I think
here.
the Broom property is 176.
176, thank you. 176 Newport Road, 198 Main Street, and 0 Newport Road are the 3 that we've been discussing. So if I were to interpret that, because we first of all have asked Colliers to look at the building on 176 Newport Road, you would be in favor of having them do the actual site work on the 2 properties at 0 Newport Road and 198 Main Street.
Yes.
Okay. Bibi, where are you in this?
Explain to me what you just said. You would be, if they're going to take a visit to the 176 Newport to determine if that building
To
could even-
inform us as to whether or not the building
Yep.
is usable, reusable.
Yep. And then you just said you would agree with the site work to be done at the other 2 properties. Is that what you
I
said?
don't see the sense in paying to do the site work if we decide until we know about the building.
I agree.
But Janet has just recommended that we ask them to do the site work, not on one site, but on both 198 Main Street and 0 Newport Road.
Yep.
That-
Yes, I agree. These
So that would
3
mean we would actually have 3 things in play.
Yes.
One is the building at 176 Newport Road,
Yeah,
and the site work as outlined in the LBA
yeah,
proposal and contract on
Agreed.
the other 2 sites.
agreed.
Is that what I hear both of you saying? Mm-hmm. I can agree with that also. I think, from my point of view, the 0 Newport Road and the 198 Main Street continue to have the virtues of being of the size that has been in play for several years now. Most recently in the work that Colliers did, but going back also to the Building and Facilities Committee, Subcommittee, and also to Chief Anderson, at least that far back in terms of the size requirement. And then also one's on Newport Road and one's on Main Street, which I think both still fit the criteria that the police chiefs have always said they wanted to be on a main drag.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
for that
And
reason, but I'm unable at this point to, without more information, know which of those two sites of that size would be better. And I think, given where we are, we'd be well served to ask LBA to look at both of them.
I think it's, at this point, it's only Colliers that's done the site visits, so I think it's added benefit to have the architects who are going to be doing this.
Well, that's part of what we
Exactly.
contracted with LBA for,
Yeah.
to do the detailed work and maybe
Exactly.
even some engineering studies.
And
those sites.
also, it can answer the question with regards to 176 Newport Road, where some people believe that the building can actually be renovated and used, and some think it needs to be a tear down. They're the experts. I am certainly not. And they can give their final opinion on it.
And certainly, for example, on the Zero Newport Road site, there's been continuing debate about the wetlands there. We've had numerous studies say that there is 2+ acres of land that can easily be built on there.
Yeah.
Been told there are 3 building lots, but somebody of their stature needs to at least review that, if not do some additional work. And if we don't get them started on that when they're here on the 2nd of August, we will
It'll put it back.
slip this very tight schedule, which gets the final report to us in the first week of September. So,
Yep, I agree, and I just want to say I've been impressed so far with the meetings that I've attended to listen to as they're building up the program for the police station, so.
So just to repeat, and then we'll get any
Okay.
input from the audience. We're going to ask LBA, in the terms of their contract with us, to do site work on both 0 Newport Road and 198 Main Street. And we've asked Colliers to, with assistance of LBA, to give us some feedback on the feasibility of reusing the structure at 176 Newport Road. Is that where we are?
Correct.
Comments, questions from the audience? I see at least 4 members of the advisory committee here, so maybe they at least have questions. Yeah. Phil?
We did.
Just-
Get warmer any minute now.
Blankets will be served next time.
Phil Sherman, simple question. I thought the street numbers in this town are radial, and Google thinks 0 Newport Road is at the corner of 114. Google's wrong all the time, but I'm confused as to the street addresses as we spoke about.
Well, you asked us to, at our last meeting, to use the street addresses, and that's the address that this piece of land is on the town website.
So 0 is in the middle of the road someplace.
Was zero
It's not
zero
on either
just,
end.
it was the corner lot, all these lots were together that the former Bewley people owned,
Corner of what?
County Road and Newport Road, and they were listed on the card, the assessor's card, as 0 Newport Road. There are no numbers assigned until there's a structure, so you can't have a number for a lot. We could use the map number. We could use the
I
map
get you.
numbers.
But there's no sequential numbers like there are at my house when they renumbered us and everything was a certain distance away from the corner.
Vacant lots don't have numbers on them.
Okay, so 0 is just a placeholder.
0 is a placeholder.
I understand,
So we could
yeah.
use
Okay,
use
fair
map
enough.
numbers, but,
Yep,
at your request, otherwise I'm going to continue to call it the old Bewley lot.
Thank you.
We're even. Anybody else? Any of the other members of the committee or so on? I don't see anybody. Okay. So that's where we are. So Ashley, you may inform LBA and we'll do it, Kim will do it formally, that we're going to take a vote here in a minute to have them do the site work called for in their contract on the Bewley lot on Newport Road and on 198 Main Street.
And you said, I just want to make a note here, you said that you did talk to Tony, so he's aware of
Talk to Tony about the building,
Okay, perfect, so.
only the building.
Okay, perfect. Am I free to put that in the email to them
You
as
may-
well?
You may
Okay.
also, although that is a deal with Tony. It
Okay.
has to do with Collier's contract with us.
Sure.
Although he's assured me that he will take an architect with him,
Okay,
whereas I'm worried about who's paying for what.
yeah, right. That's fair, okay.
Whereas the other two are going to be part of the LBA contract.
Yep, that's part of that contract.
Part
Okay.
of your committee. Yep.
You got it. Thank you.
Yep. So one piece of work's being done for the selectmen, the other work's being done for you. Yep. Okay? Okay, moving on. Boom, boom. Don't see other hands up. New business. Lynn, we have a list of, what? Oh, sorry, yes. All in favor of what we requested of Colliers and LBA, as I just described, please say aye.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, Lynn, your moment. List of encumbrances for fiscal
Right.
year '24.
Correct. So you guys know that around this time of year, I start closing out for fiscal '24, moving on to '25, but there's usually a few straggling invoices where we've ordered things in good faith and they haven't come in as of yet. This year, it's only $24,520. If you guys remember, during the COVID years, the supply chain was terrible, and we had a really high encumbrances. So this is small. It's just one for dispatch, two for fire, and one for DPW.
Okay, and is this piece of paper our thing to sign here?
It is.
Okay, so I'll entertain a vote to approve the list of encumbrances as provided by the finance officer.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank you.
Next, Kim, Pine Hill Ski Club request.
This is an annual request that Pine Hill Ski Club requests the use of town property over on Mountain Road. They also use some property that's controlled by the Conservation Commission, and I'm understanding that the Conservation Commission has already given their approval, so they're looking for their annual approval by the Selectmen. They do submit a certificate of insurance for use of the property as well. So I would recommend that you approve it as you have in the past, 15 years, maybe 20, I don't know. It's been a while, yeah. So cross-country skiing.
Any comments, Epstein's? Phil? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Pine Hill Ski Club's request to use town property for cross-country ski trail.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kim, your report.
I was approached at one of the last Police Advisory Committee meeting by one of the members who questioned whether the selectmen would consider adding daycare service for town meeting as a way to hopefully get folks that have younger children to be able to attend town meeting. We might also want to consider changing the time. I think this boards in the past have kind of considered this, that 7 p.m. can be tough on some residents, so you might want to consider changing the time to 6 or 6:30. You could also change the date. Many towns have town meeting on Saturday. So that's another consideration, that would take it out of the evening altogether. It's not something you need to decide tonight, but maybe kind of think about it. I think in terms of daycare or having people, that would be an easy thing to do. We could get the rec department and some volunteers to, have games and, coloring books and, whatever kids do. So I think that would be an excellent addition. It's a great idea. So just to kind of think about that, but that would be a possibility to either change the day or change the time as a way to get more people out.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And I was going to discuss the George's Mills thing, but I was preempted by Bob, so he did a much better
I wanted
job.
to get him before he left the room.
Yeah, it was a good idea, because my description of it would not have been long, but I can tell you that I would agree with Bob. I mean, all the people that helped on that's a huge thing, and given the location of George's Mills by the lake, makes it even more important to make sure that the wastewater is treated, and, they're always spot on. So I would agree with him, the kudos he gave to the water precinct and the town of Sunapee, Stearns, and his people too. So it was a great job. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, so you got, you have any meetings, Janet?
We had planning board last night, and we had one business owner who wishes to move from her current location to another one, and we discussed that. There are parking issues and a variety of other things, and so it was just very preliminary when we talked to her. Adam went over briefly the capital improvement program, and they're continuing to meet on that, and that was it. It was a very quiet night.
BB, you have quiet nights too?
Yeah, I had a watershed initiative meeting this week, gave them the update on the progress of where we're starting to talk more about the septic ordinance. Newberry's going to take another stab at it this year and do it a different way than they did last year. LSPA has an intern this summer who's working on a project that compares all 3 towns' watershed protection ordinances and noting which ordinances each town does not have, and in the hopes that each town will consider adding them. So I've shared some information on that with Adam, and she's also working on a brochure that can be distributed to new homeowners in each town explaining all the different ordinances, because there's many times that if people are buying those big houses over on the lake, they don't realize they have a septic system that they have to pump out, or they don't realize that they shouldn't be fertilizing their lawns with all that phosphorus-based fertilizer, things like that. So she's creating that brochure that can be used by all 3 towns, which is great. And we had our first CIP meeting this week with Bob and Sam before Bob heads off. We're getting catching him on everything before he leaves. It was very, very simple, and Bob and Sam went over, their future plans. Sam had some things that he wanted to, changes he wanted to make, and explained it, and they talked about that asset management program, and Sam's using an similar program like this now for the wastewater treatment plant, so he's familiar with, how it all works, and I was telling Janet, he's very excited about it, so, yep, that's it.
Okay. Minutes of our meeting of July 10th.
That we accept the minutes of July 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting.
Good minutes, by the way, Carol.
Yeah.
Yes, very good.
The minutes, the meeting schedule is posted here. I believe the planning board schedule is actually the 13th, not the 14th of August, but that's just a typo. Kim, have you rescheduled the next sewer meeting so that we can get it in our calendars?
No, not yet, but I may be speaking with Dave Bailey. I'll bring Sam along with me. He's got some things that he wants to talk about, so I'll bring that to the next meeting. But no, I think we're going to lean towards just September.
Towards the end of September?
Yeah.
Skip August? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Great. Any other business to this evening? Anybody? No? Abstain? You made the whole meeting. Fantastic, Jim. Oh, my God.
And is it the last?
Well, welcome, Jim. Welcome, Jim. Don't be a stranger.
I won't make it happen.
The Epsteins come every meeting, so if you want to, Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Okay, we will sign, pay vouchers, and et cetera, and then we will adjourn.
Thank you.
But we only put it, we only changed it.